A spate of unprecedented policy steps aimed at putting an end to Japan's chronic deflation later became known as the Kuroda Bazooka. So there you go. Tuesday, August 1st, 2023, Maneko 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So it didn't take that long. The Bank of Japan has conducted special operations. They did it yesterday. I only saw the news after I finished my report from yesterday. So they've done basically more QE, and the Japanese yen has reached an all-time low versus gold, or gold hit an all-time high in Japanese yen. We're going to look at that. And we're also going to look at some history about the Bank of Japan that just came out. I found it in a Japanese newspaper. Before we go into Japan, just have a look at some of the news stories coming out that affect, I would say, the financial system, the markets, currencies. And currencies for me are the common denominator of everything. And I think in the US, people don't really look too closely at currency because they haven't had to worry about it, because the dollar is, there's nothing else, right? It's been the major reserve currency. But I think Americans are going to have to start worrying about their currency. So the first one is a tweet here that Lawrence Lepard retweeted about the national debt, U.S. total debt. And it's amazing. It's gone up almost $2 trillion in 5 months. So there you go, U.S. total debt. And I know a lot of people always say, well, it's been going up for years and nothing happens. But I think there's a tipping point, and we're definitely getting closer to that. What else have I seen here? Well, from Sven Henrik, who I follow at Northman Trader, he says they're spending like drunken sailors, and already all CBO estimates are out the window. And it's interesting because I've been speaking with Clive Thompson, and we've been looking at the CBO projection. So, and we said they're always underestimating things. So it hasn't taken that long. So it says here, U.S. Treasury boosts quarterly borrowing estimates to $1 trillion. Department had previously estimated $733 billion for the quarter, not the year, not the decade, for the quarter. Pretty soon, we're going to be talking about trillions a month, or maybe even a week, and then we have to start worrying about it. So there's another thing here, of course, that shows that I think the economy is not doing well. It's to do with Yellow Corp. A 99-year-old trucking company shuts down, laying off 30,000 workers after a battle with the Teamsters Union. And I saw a tweet by Peter Schiff, and I've had Peter Schiff on, and I respect Peter Schiff, but I don't agree with him 100% what he said here about this company going bust. He says, just another driven out of business by labor unions, another company. Since labor unions destroy jobs, over time they do more harm than good for their members. Plus, one less trucking competitor means higher shipping costs for all goods and bigger future CPI gains. I'm surprised Peter Schiff didn't say that one of the reasons probably, and I haven't really looked deeply into this, but usually unions are demanding higher pay. And why are they demanding higher pay? Well, because the Federal Reserve and the government, they've inflated like mad. And the currency that truck drivers or whoever else in other sectors earn becomes worth less and less. So I think it's a little bit one-sided here. Peter Schiff maybe should have blamed the Fed and the government as well, who are creating the currency like mad. And I'm not saying I agree 100% with unions, but if anything, maybe Peter Schiff should have told these Teamsters, try to look into the monetary system, demand payment in real money. Maybe that's the problem. And I've spoken about this before. I even have some mugs and some merchandise in my Teespring store that you have to have wages in AU and AG in gold and silver. So yeah, Peter Schiff, I don't agree with you on that one. So what else is going on? Just one more thing before we move to Japan. Just saw this tweet here. It's actually from First Majestic. It was retweeted by JC here. And it says, Tad Butler calling cold red on silver due to physical shortages and extreme COMEX shorts. He sees parallels to the 2022 nickel squeeze when the price violently exploded. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see about that. We've been waiting for silver to explode for many years. Doesn't mean to say I'm not continuing to stack silver and gold for that matter. So back to Japan. And I spoke about Japan last week. The Bank of Japan, of course, tweaked their yield curve control policy. And there's a lot of volatility in the currency markets. The dollar dropped from 142 down to 138. And I said last week that the Bank of Japan, of course, is between a rock and a hard place. They're much more advanced in terms of the debt than we are in the West. And it's going to get worse, as you've seen here from the numbers from the U.S. Treasury. So I said that the Bank of Japan was going to probably resort again to more money printing like they did late last year and early this year. And yesterday when I spoke about the yen and the JGBs, I noticed that the dollar had gone up quite a bit and the yen had dropped. And I said I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't in there. And by they, I mean the Bank of Japan doing more QE. And I didn't find any headlines really in the mainstream Western press. But I saw a tweet later on yesterday. And I found the story actually in the Mainichi Shimbun, which is one of the major papers in Japan. And this is from yesterday, of course, and it says, Bank of Japan conducts special bond buying operation, the first one since February 22 this year. It says, Bank of Japan on Monday announced a special open market operation to buy 300 billion yen or $2 billion worth of Japanese government bonds. The first such purchase since February 22nd as long-term yields jumped. The move came as benchmark yield on 10-year bonds surged to a 9-year high above 0.6% at one stage on Monday, following the central bank's decision last week to allow it to rise past the 0.5% cap. So actually 2 billion is not that much because they're used to doing 10s and 20s and 30 billion amounts in dollars. But I think it just shows that a bit of desperation that they went in and just did a tiny amount. I know $2 billion is a lot of money for us, but for the Bank of Japan, it seems odd. It just shows that they're desperate, in my opinion. And as I've said before, the Japanese yen and its weakness, the carry trade, which means that Westerners borrow the yen for nothing. Actually, it's still negative. And with those proceeds, they actually take those proceeds in their currencies, let's say dollar, euro, pounds, or whatever other Western currency, and they buy assets. And that's how it works in the foreign exchange market. When you sell a currency or when you borrow, you sell the currency and you receive the other ones. So that creates a lot of liquidity despite the fact that the central banks in the West, like the ECB, the Bank of England, the Fed, are supposed to be tightening, it keeps the financial markets liquefied. And it's a huge part of this whole everything bubble Ponzi scheme. And why did the Japanese yen hit an all-time low then, or the gold hit an all-time high? Well, because there's no way to keep this going, this Ponzi scheme going, aside from just printing money. That's all that central bankers know how to do. So you can see here the price of gold in yen reached an all-time high of 280,800 yen yesterday. Right now we're back below 280,000, and I wanted to show you this chart because it shows here that we've had in Japanese yen these consolidations, these triple or quadruple tops, and eventually gold goes higher. And I think the Japanese yen and what's happening there with the BOJ is a blueprint for what's going to happen in the US, in the UK, in Europe, and most of the major Western countries. So, and you can see how gold has done really well. It's been protecting people in Japan. I've spoken to or been in contact with Rumpelstiltskin, one of my viewers who's been a subscriber for many years. He's in Japan, and he saw the video from last week. He was curious to watch it, and he said the majority of Japanese still respect the people in charge at the Bank of Japan, the politicians. They respect the fact that they all went to the best universities. But he agrees with me in terms of the currency. When will the Japanese wake up? The general public? I don't know. But when they do, it's going to be something that will affect the whole world, not just Japan. And I also found a story today looking through this Japanese newspaper online, the Mainichi Shimbun, and they had a story from yesterday as well. Ex-BOJ chief pushed board into powerful monetary easing. And this is from the 2013 minutes. Apparently the BOJ only releases minutes of their meetings 10 years later. So this was, of course, the former Bank of Japan governor who left office this year, Haruhiko Kuroda. And he was the guy, along with Prime Minister Abe, who started this Abenomics, which depended, basically the two pillars were heavy fiscal spending by the government and heavy monetary easing by the BOJ. And I'm going to put a link to this article for you in the description. It's in English. They have an English version, the Mainichi. And it says basically that the newly elected at the time governor of the Bank of Japan, or selected, Kuroda, basically went in the meeting and told the other members of the committee, we're going to do this. And he didn't even, usually he's supposed to consult everyone before setting policy, and he didn't. And that that was something. It doesn't criticize him here, but it's implied, I think, and it talks about the independence of the Bank of Japan, that it joined forces with Abe, the prime minister, and created this Abenomics. And this, of course, started in 2013. Kuroda went, I think the term they use is a bazooka. Kuroda bazooka, so there you go. A spate of unprecedented policy steps aimed at putting an end to Japan's chronic deflation later became known as the Kuroda bazooka. So there you go. And what the bazooka has done, it says here, lifting Japanese share prices, weakening the yen. The BOJ's bold monetary policy easing was a key pillar of then Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's economy reviving Abenomics. So I'm going to stop at that. We're going to, of course, keep a close eye on Japan, on the JGB market, on the yen. And with that, we're going to quickly look at where the markets are this morning. We've got spot gold correcting back down a little bit. We're at 1956, is down about $9. High's been 66. We're right near the lows here. Yes, frustrating for those who hold gold and think in US dollars. But as I said, Japanese yen, a blueprint for it, in my opinion. Silver is at 24.53. It's down 20 cents. High's been 24.80, and we're right near the lows here. The Dow futures down 22. NASDAQ 100 futures down 37. S&P down 4. To the currencies, we've got sterling down 0.2% versus the dollar, 128.15. The euro is down a quarter at 109.71. And the dollar is up 1/3% versus the yen, 142.73. So the yen continued to weaken. We're just off the highs here. And the dollar's up 0.4% versus the yuan at 717.20. To the other currencies, Aussie dollar is down almost 1% at 66.55. The dollar is up 1/3% versus the Canadian dollar at 132.33. And the Kiwi dollar is down about 0.5% at 61.80. So actually, I detect a little bit of volatility in the FX market, which is something that isn't really good for the overall financial system, I think. The more volatile these currencies are, the more it means there's something that is not really pointing to good things. That's just the way I see it. Crude oil is continuing to move a lot higher. WTI is down overnight 0.25%, but we're still above 81, around 81.50. Brent is 85.20, down 0.25%. We've got platinum trading around $950. It's down about $6. And we've got high-grade copper. That had traded back up above 4 yesterday. We're now just under 4 at 399.50. It's down 0.5%. We're going to finish off with the bond markets. Let's start with the JGBs in Tokyo. The 10-year yield there is at 0.587, so it's down a couple of basis points. The high's been 0.614. That was the high yesterday as well. I think maybe that's a level where the BOJ is stepping in, who knows, to buy the JGBs and bring the yields back down. And the reason yields are so important, the fact it's so important for them to keep it low, is that the debt is becoming astronomical. It's exploding. You saw it in the US. It's happening in Japan. So the more government debt that they issue and borrow into existence, the more payments they'll have to make, interest payments, if rates go higher. So it could get out of control. And that's why the bond market is so important. Let's look at the UK government bond market. And we start with the 2-year yield because they're important for mortgage rates. 2-year yield is still above 5%. We're around 5.04. So it's pretty steady, not really going anywhere. The 10-year has come off in the last couple of days. We're at 4.35. And we'll finish off with the U.S. Treasury market. The 2-year yield is down about 2 basis points at 4.85. And the 10-year, yes, they've been able to keep that below 4% right now. We're at 3.96. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.